Good afternoon, everyone. I just realized that I think our attendees were in the whole time. I didn't think you were in, so sorry about that for not not realizing my own technology working quite as well as I thought it was. Um, Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Michael Cato. I am the Senior Vice President and CIO here at Bowdoin College. And in the context of today's conversation, I have the honor of serving as the Faculty Director for the Next Leaders Fellowship. And today is our pleasure to do what has become an annual tradition for us, which is to introduce the fellowship to the broader community and perhaps get a chance to answer questions for those who are considering applying or in the process of applying. One of my favorite parts about this, we get to have these conversations with current and former Next Leaders Fellowship participants. And I don't say former often, so let me not say that again. So we will have on this call today, we've got a few members of the NLF community, as we like to refer to ourselves, and a few more people I think will be joining us as we go through the conversation. Um, we will be doing, hopefully, treating this as a dialogue. So we will be paying attention to the questions and hopefully getting a chance to fold these in our conversation as we walk through. Today, I'm hoping we can do things a little bit differently than you might be expecting. Instead of starting with introductions, which then you have to remember the introductions before we get to the open Q&A part, I thought we could start by telling you a little bit more about the program itself, the structure, what we've accomplished, and then talking a little about the impact so far. And then I will invite the other members of the panel to introduce themselves, and then we'll start with some questions that I have prepared, but hopefully it is our desire to spend most of this in conversation with those of you who are joining us as participants. So if you've come prepared with questions that you'd like to have answered about the fellowship, for myself as the faculty director, or for any of the other panelists who are NLF Fellows, NLF alums, we're going to spend most of our time, if we can pull this off well, working through your questions for them. Okay, that sound good? And of course, I'm looking at my panelists because those are the only faces I can see right now. All right, so let's start with the program. This is a picture from the website. Hopefully, you've all seen this, the nextleadersfellowship.org. And the place I would draw your attention is our mission, right? We're pursuing a vision where all information and technology professionals have the opportunity, support, and advocacy to achieve senior leadership roles, right? We came up with that when we first started this idea, and that's what we are pursuing. And so the structure of the program is that we recruit 12 participants through a competitive selection process. You can nominate yourself. You are not required to have anyone else's letter of recommendation to get you in. There's a part of the process where we ask for a reference in case it's needed as we're going through the selection process, but this is all about how you present yourself through the application process. And then in the program, each of the participants has a series of sponsored experiences that they take part in, which I'll talk about more in a minute. But we spend quite a bit of time and energy on the mentorship and coaching throughout the program year. So there's a combination of virtual experiences and in-person experiences where all of the fellows get a chance to spend time with the 12 mentors, is a language that we use for ourselves, those of us who are running the program itself. And these are my colleagues who are themselves accomplished and diverse group of senior leaders across the country from different types of institutions and different organizations. And our goal is to build a community among and around a diverse group of fellows. And 3 years in, there are now 36 members of the community of fellows who are interacting with each other, and we are now recruiting for the fourth class. The two sponsored experiences, oh, and I missed one of my dates here. I apologize for getting the dates wrong. It is NERComp 2025. We will launch in March, at the end of March in Providence, Rhode Island. And then we will come together again at EDUCAUSE in October of 2025, this year in Nashville, Tennessee. And there are, in addition to taking part in the conference itself, we actually have quite a bit of programming so that the fellows spend a lot more time with each other and with the mentors. Both of the launch experience and NERComp, we do a program called the Designing Your Life Experience. It actually comes out of Stanford's Design School. And we begin what is a year-long experience on the compassion-based resilience program that we will get a chance to touch on as we go through some of the Q&A on this as well. Let's see, where else would I go? Oh, and so that's the program year is what we refer to it as. But then each of the fellows is sponsored by NLF to take part in a leadership development experience of their choice the following year. So that's then the professional development year. And our fellows have chosen things like the EDUCAUSE Institutes or the More Leaders program. We've actually had quite a few people do the More Leaders program. Excuse me, I list the Leading Change Institute here, but they've been on hiatus the last couple of years. But when we have conversations with the fellows, there's a dialogue to figure out what is a program that we think that you think as a fellow will best fit you and your aspirations and send you in the direction that you'd like to go. That sponsorship means that the fellowship will advocate on your behalf to get into the program. We will pay for your registration in the program, and we will give $1,000 towards your travel expenses to take part in that leadership development program in that following year. And then we have a series of monthly virtual experiences throughout the year, in addition to the two in-person experiences. Um, I'm listing some of the example topics that we've covered. Those topics are informed by the fellows themselves. So we have this ongoing conversation of what are some of the topics you'd like to cover. We build that list, quite a bit of it, at the March experience. We've done things like talking about the recruiting process, how our identities shape our experiences and our leadership, relationships and communications, leadership styles. We've had conversations with search firms, extensive conversations with search firms. And one thing that I mentioned, the compassion-based resilience training, that is its own cadence of monthly conversations that happen through the year as well. And that is a program out of the Nalanda Institute out of New York City, and really wrestling with what does it look like to better take care of ourselves as we are carrying roles of increasing responsibility. And again, how might our backgrounds and experiences and identities influence the way that we experience those things and how we can take care of ourselves and others. I promise I will not be talking much longer. I just want to set the stage for this, and then we'll turn to introductions and Q&A. Hopefully, everyone who's now on this webinar knows the process for applying, but just to point it out, it's on the website. If you're at nextleadersfellowship.org and slash apply, you'll see the application. You can get to the application from there. It's an online application process. It lays out the expectations of the fellowship itself. I noted that you might imagine there's quite a bit of engagement throughout that year. So making sure that you're thinking about, do you have the time for it in this coming year? We also share openly what is the selection criteria that we use. One question we often get, and it may come up in the Q&A, which is fine, we'll talk about that as well, that the selection is driven by how you respond to the questions and nothing else. We are actually not looking at your CV. We're not looking at the roles that you've had to decide whether you are competitive or not. It is strictly based on how you respond to the questions in the application, how you engage with the questions that are put to you. And the feedback we've gotten from quite a few of the fellows, which I'm curious if this is going to come up in this year's conversation, is that a lot of people found the application itself, that it took a lot it required a lot of vulnerability. It really put a lot of yourself into answering the question. So I would encourage anyone to ask some questions of the fellows of how they found that experience. I want to thank our sponsors. Primary sponsor is Bowdoin College, my home institution, but we also have the support of, and this is just a few of our sponsors on this slide, a group of institutions, Next Generation Partners as a search firm, EDUCAUSE, NORCOMP, and the Moore Associates folks have been really great partners. Again, with a group of other sponsors that are fully listed on our website, and we are so grateful to them for helping us make this program what it is. And one thing I realized is not in our slides, there is no cost to participating for any of the fellows. There is a participation fee that can be fully waived. It's $1,000 participation fee. There's a bunch of reasons why we came up with that figure, but there's also a place in the application where you can indicate my institution's not in a position to support me, and I can't, we don't want that to be a barrier. So that fee can be reduced or fully waived for anyone who's applying, which means that participation at EDUCAUSE and NERCOMP and so forth is all going to be funded by the fellowship itself. All right, so one more note about impact, because this is one of my proudest things to share, and it's still not on the website, even though I'm woefully behind in bragging about the accomplishments of our fellows. We have had Next Leaders Fellows who are award winners. We've had multiple Next Leaders Fellows being promoted into different positions of increasing responsibility. Felix, I get to brag on you because you're on the panel today, and Felix is the 2023 DEI Leadership Award winner for EDUCAUSE. But this is perhaps one of my proudest slides because we've been asked repeatedly just how much of an impact is the program making on the careers of the fellows themselves. Of the 24 members of the first two cohorts, we have now reached a point where half of them have changed roles since the program began. Like I said, and 5 of them have changed to C-suite positions, including Stephanie Cox, who's on today's call. So you get a chance to talk with her if you've got questions about that. We have 2 EDUCAUSE Award winners, and multiple conference presentations. We've had multiple people appointed to board of directors, and 1 award-winning authors. I actually love to brag about that because we try to celebrate all of our community holistically. So it's not just about our professional accomplishments. And of the 12 members of the current class, 4 of them have changed roles since the program began. And Shantae, right on time. Shantae Trammell, who just joined on the panel, is actually the host of the Leadership Amplified podcast, which has included a series of conversations with Next Leaders Fellow community members and others. If you ever want to hear more conversations about what that's been like, there's quite a bit there. All right, so that is the context of the program. That is the context of the structure. And now we're going to spend the next hour and change having a broader conversation. But I thought the place we could start is by inviting our panel to introduce themselves. So I'm going to go in order of what I've got here on Zoom. And then Sherry, I'll ask you to tie it up at the end. So Shantae, how about I start with you? Would you mind introducing yourself, sharing which of the cohorts you're in, and then telling us about your role?
Sure. I'm Shantae Trammell. I am the manager of Technology Support Centers at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. I am part of the Next Leaders Fellowship second cohort, which was the 23-24 cohort. Yes, was there some more I needed to provide?
Yep, that's it. That's our starting point. Thanks, Shantae. I appreciate that. Christian.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christian Carde Guzman, and currently a business analyst at Amherst College in Massachusetts. And I'm also part of the second cohort with Shantae.
Thank you very much, Christian. Felix.
Hello, everybody. Felix Zuniga with the California State University at the Office of the Chancellor. And I'm a part of the Alpha Line, the first cohort, 22-23. I currently serve as a campus engagement partner for the CSU.
I appreciate that, Felix. I was curious how long it would take before the inter-cohort friendly rivalry start. It normally doesn't take very long. All right, Justin.
Hello, everybody. I'm Justin Gatewood. I've worked in the California Community College system since 2006. I'm currently a cybersecurity faculty member at Purdue Global, Cal State, Long Beach, San Diego State, and UNLV. And actually looking for my next full-time position, but kind of stepped away for a minute from all of that to, as you are challenged in this program, to really reflect on where I can best serve and step up to my next position. I'm in what I think is the best cohort, the follow-up to the ones who started it off, but we perfected it, Shantae and Christian and I, in the 23-24 cohort. How's it going?
All right, here we go. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it. Jason, I'll turn to you next.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jason Daly. I am the Director of Customer Engagement at California Institute of the Arts. I am part of, I guess, the Gamma line. Is that what we're calling this? The most recent one, the one that's actually wrapping up just now. And it's been amazing. So happy to talk to all of you guys. And happy to see all of you again.
Thank you very much, Jason. And I believe, Stephanie, you're next.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Cox, and I am the Assistant Vice President and the Chief Technology Officer here at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. That's a background that I have up for you here. I am a part of that inaugural class with Felix. We're like the original. So I'm really excited to see and have you all here today and happy to answer any questions that you might have. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, and Sherry, if you'll close us out in the introduction.
Sure. Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Sherry Costanzo. I am one of the mentors and Michael's partner in crime, as I call myself. I am the Senior Director for Digital Innovation at Bowdoin College. Great to see everyone here.
Really appreciate that, Sherry. All right, so a reminder to our panelists, I'm sorry, our participants, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. We will be keeping track of that to filter questions into the conversation. For those who may have ever seen me facilitate a dialogue, though, I come with my own questions and I'll fill the whole time if you let me. So if you've got questions, please don't be shy about them. So the way we're going to do this, I've got some questions to start. We're not necessarily going to take an answer from everyone because I know you all well enough that each of you will have opinions to share, which are more than welcome. But we'll see if we can get a couple responses on each one, and then we'll dig in from there. So maybe just a first level setting one. How did you become interested in participating in NLF to begin with? Oh, don't be shy now, because none of you actually are. So just raise your hand and I'll recognize you. Felix,
Yeah, I'll go.
and then Shante.
No.
Okay. So I had been looking for different kinds of leadership opportunities, and I had applied for a different fellowship from a different organization. And while I was waiting to hear back on that one, I actually saw the announcement for NLF. And so I was thinking, wow, this is like exactly what I'm looking for. Let me apply to this and maybe I'll get into one of these programs, right? And so then seeing the names of the mentors were people that I've recognized through EDUCAUSE. And I was like, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking to do. So I applied to both. I actually got into both, and so I did both. But I say that to not stop ourselves, because we're the first ones to stop ourselves from reaching out to something because we're doing something else. Shante.
Appreciate that, Felix. Shante.
Yes. So the reason why I became interested in applying for this was I was in a part of my career where sort of like a crossroads. Every 2 years, I evaluate where I am in my career, and I knew I wanted to expand where I was. And my AVP at the university had suggested that I look into this program, and it kind of scared me a bit because it talked about if you would like to be a C-suite professional in your career, and it wasn't something that it was in the forefront for me. But then I started to reflect and see that perhaps this is interesting. So when I within the interest meeting, like we are now, I heard stories from Stephanie and Felix, and that really encouraged me. I tell them all the time that those two really influenced me to actually apply because their stories was very near and dear, and it kind of resonated with me. So happy that I chose to apply and got in.
Well, definitely we benefited from your participation in it, Shante. Thank you. Well, Jason, since you're in the current class, how would you answer that question? How did you become interested?
So right before, a couple of years before I got accepted in next year's fellowship, I got, I won't say it was a promotion, but I got a elevated position because I actually had to leave and come back. That's another story. But sometimes you gotta leave your place and come back to get a promotion. But so I got basically an elevated position with a lot of leadership, a director's position, and I really didn't know kind of how to move in that space. I kind of had an idea of what leadership was, but it was really me just following, a list of tasks that someone set out for me to follow, and I wanted to have a new mindset about what leadership was. My direct supervisor, my CIO, he's a CTO. My CTO is actually part of EDUCAUSE, and he knows Michael, and he had heard of the Next Leaders Fellowship, so he encouraged me to apply. Thought it would be good for my development, and it has been. It's been great. So definitely had the support of my CIO, and he's the one who pushed me to do it. The first time I didn't get in the first time I applied. So that was humbling, but put a lot more effort into it the second time around, and I actually did get accepted. So it was a great feeling, once you actually do the work to fill out the application, and we'll get more into that. But yeah, that's how I got interested into it. I just wanted to make myself a more well-rounded leader.
Appreciate that, Jason, and on all the reminders too. So we've got a couple questions in the queue that maybe we can touch on a couple of them. There's a question that in the past years of the fellowship, have we ever had first generation immigrants who are not native English speakers? And the short answer is yes, actually multiple. So it's not something that we are unfamiliar with. That actually has been a couple of experiences of some of our fellows. The question about an acceptance rate, I actually haven't done the calculation, but I will say without hesitation that there are more applications than we have the 12 slots. So each year is different as to the number of people applied. Now, this is not like a college acceptance rate, so it's not like that, right? It is competitive, but this is not like we're accepting 5% of the people that apply. It's the numbers are not like that at all. And it's been an interesting observation for me. Sherry, I don't know if you've noticed this as well. We've had a number of people begin an application and not submit it. So that's been an interesting piece to it too, which I think is sometimes if I was answering the question about acceptance rate, would have to delve into that part as well. And we've got another question about, is most of the program online? I think that's a really interesting way to phrase it. I'll give an initial answer and I will turn to our panel to see how you would weigh in. Of the monthly experiences, yes, most of the monthly experiences are done virtually. And there are 2 in-person experiences at the 2 conferences that we talked about. We also have been working on adding a 3rd in-person experience. We did it for 1 class. Well, it looks like we'll be able to do it again for the current class. But for the 2nd year, we weren't able to do a 3rd experience. But there's a lot of engagement, and the mentor engagement happens mostly virtually. But is that been how you all would describe the experience as well? That a lot of the interaction is done virtually?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Mhm.
Sante, I got a 1-word answer out of you. That's a record.
I'm just warming up,
There you go.
I'm giving the
All right,
other
I feel better then. I feel better. Christian, go for it.
I just want to go back to the question that, with the person who, that was asking about the native, non-native English speakers and like first generation immigrants. I'm not an immigrant. I come from Puerto Rico, but so the experience it's different. But I am a first generation of in my family who went to college and also who moved to USA. Coming from island that we speak just Spanish. It's I don't know from where this person it's like from where the question comes, but I think that's something we have that question or that fear about going to these programs and not probably having or managing language in a perfect way, in probably that's where fear comes, so are we gonna be have meet the goals of the program because we don't speak Spanish, English, or how are we managing that, or are we will be able we'll be able to complete the program without knowing the language. So I don't know. I think to this person I will say that that shouldn't be a fear if you don't manage the English in the perfect way. I don't manage the English in the perfect way, and I was able to do the programming, and I was able also to get another job. So I think that shouldn't be fear, or it shouldn't be a stone in your path, to apply or to I still invite you to apply and try to do it.
Really appreciate that, Christian. And thank you for going back and looking at that. There were 2 parts to that question, right? Because it's an immigrant question, but also the language question and the first language question. So that specificity, I think, is actually really important, really valuable. And as I think about it, I believe Spanish is one, but I think there's at least 1 or 2 other native languages among the fellows that are in the program. So yeah, thank you very much for making that point. All right, so I'll take 1 more of my questions. Oh, please, Justin.
Thank you, Michael. I wanted to go back to the question about what our thoughts were about applying for the program and just giving everybody my perspective on it. I'd been pursuing education personally, and just trying to find my own path, which we all do to an extent, right? As Shante was talking about, reevaluating where you are. and whether or not that you feel that's been successful, and whether or not it's gotten you to the point where you feel competitive in certain higher level roles. And I realized that I had kind of hit a ceiling of sorts of my own understanding of what I needed to do. And it took kind of an internal consideration. Do I have the tools that I need to step to that next level and be successful? I didn't feel confident that I did. And the NLF program was talking about joint experiences with others and sharing with mentors who have achieved these things, like Michael and Sherry and Keith and Ray, my mentor, and Jen, and a bunch of other mentors, Felix, who have been able to do that. And so being able to bounce ideas off of them in the in-person experiences, in the virtual sessions, with other fellows in the program who are also looking at their pathway, has been really eye-opening for me. And then the follow-up year afterwards, the leadership development experience that's sponsored by NLF was also transformative for me, because it built upon what we learned in NLF. And so it's just been a growth opportunity for me. And so what does that produce for me? I've been able to step into second level and final interviews with campus presidents and senior leaders for positions, and then determine through Michael's admonition, when you're interviewing for that level of position, is it right for you? And so I've been offered a few of those positions, C-level. I could have just accepted one and moved, but they weren't right for me, because I had the understanding now through reflection and interaction with folks in this program, Moral Leaders, and it was the one I chose, on how to appropriately evaluate those experiences. Is this going to be the right place for me to go? And are they going to be right for me? Am I going to be right for them? And that's been transformative for me, where I don't feel that same level of pressure or stress to just say yes because someone chose me and I'm so excited and I jump in and maybe it's the wrong thing. So that's really changed my thought process quite a bit. And I wouldn't have gotten there without all of the wonderful people in this program. It wouldn't have happened.
I really appreciate that, Justin. I do realize that's been a conversation that's come up a number of times, right? That trying to add a level of discernment and intentionality, that for a lot of us, that you so desire to have that next promotion that sometimes we just accept it without really being critical about, look, this is not a scarcity mindset, right? There are going to be opportunities. How do I really put myself in a position to assess it? I want to take two quick questions that are in the chat, and then I've got another one that I'll take of mine. There was two questions about recommendation letters. I mentioned this in passing, so let me just be specific. The application itself does ask for not a letter of reference, but someone who can be a reference for you. And that's the part I was being specific. The question is there. The system will send them a link that they can fill it out and put it back in. But we only use it if it turns out that there's like a tie we're trying to break, and it would be helpful to have additional point of input on this person. So far in 3 years of application processes, we haven't used them. But to the questions of multiple are required, there is a space for you to send a request for a reference for someone else, and the system will handle all of that for you. You just need to know their name and their email address. All right, so let me do one question of mine and then we'll come back. We've got two more in the queue that I want to make sure we get to as well, but this is one of my favorite ones. As you all reflect on your experiences, I'd ask you to just offer one example of a valuable or meaningful experience from the fellowship that stands out for you. Now, I'll be clear, I'm not asking you for your most valuable one, because I know how stressful those questions are for me. So I'm just asking you for one. So that if someone named something that was closer to yours, you can think of something else as well. Stephanie, how about we start with you this time? What's an experience that stands out for you?
It's still even hard for me to pick one. But anyway, I'll start with a kind of a long-winded answer, not that long. But I'll start with my reason for joining, or for putting my application out there. You asked that question earlier and I didn't pop in because I think that really lends to my experience there. I consider myself one of they call me the mama. I'm like one of the more senior members of my cohort. Later in my career, definitely I've been doing IT for 25 years. In private sector, most of it, just the last 10 years in higher ed. And it all came to me around COVID, during COVID. I started doing Well, we were working really heavily. I ran remote access. At the time, I ran remote access for Indiana University for all 9 campuses during COVID. And that was a very stressful time. To kind of help me at that time, I needed to do something that was just going to kind of feed my purpose. I think I was really tapped into doing things, looking for something to feed my purpose for being. And that's when I started working with a program called ARIA, again, against racism in higher education, and doing webinars and doing this. And in so doing that, I met was going to be one of the existing founders, along with Michael, a valued mentor of NLF. But we didn't know about NLF. I didn't know about NLF. Didn't know this person at all. But we worked together for, oh my gosh, almost a year. That whole COVID year, you guys. I was just going through a lot. For me personally, I was working really, really hard because my job was really hard. I was going through some personal health issues. So really kind of focused on my whole self, right? Getting healthy, making sure what I was doing was what I wanted to be doing. And then I was told about the program, and that it was kind of designed for looking for the next leader, people of color or underrepresented. And I thought, oh, can that be me? I wasn't even sure if I even had any more gas left in my tank. I'm not kidding. I really, really felt like that for a long, 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 long time. You can ask these guys. But what stands out, and to answer your question, what stands out the most now as I reflect, it's not one certain thing that we did. It's the fact that the program and the connections, they constantly still keep filling and feeding me, right? That same thing that I was looking for during COVID 25 years ago, to be fed, it's still nurturing. It's so much a part of who I am right now, and the leader that I want to continue to be. I want to continue to be a vessel for that. And so I just, even just being here today, it's a privilege for me. It's an honor for me. I really mean that. It's good to reflect. I'm super busy right now because I'm putting in a new network here at Trinity College, and everything is blowing up. So that's why you see me looking down. But it's still a good reminder why I'm here, when I'm not doing all that, what my purpose is, and being around other people who want to pour into you and help you find that. That's what you get from this program. And that's, all I want to.
Really appreciate that, Stephanie. That language is
Oh.
just beautiful about, well, the pouring into and the feeding you and feeding others. I really appreciate that language. I also want to tie something you said back to a question that's in the queue. Do you have to be a current manager in a current manager role to apply for the program? And the short answer is no. When we first designed it, Sherry was part of those conversations. We really wrestled with that question of what place in someone's career would we feel is where we are trying to focus. And we ultimately decided in the first year we didn't know. So we just cast a wide net. And watching the first cohort and then happen again in the second cohort and again in the third, that there is this opportunity for peer mentoring and networking within the class because people have different years of experience and have come from different backgrounds and have contributed differently. You end up in these really rich conversations that were just very different if we were limiting it. So no, that is not a criteria for application. It really comes down to how you answer the questions in the application itself. I will openly say that I think those questions are challenging. We got quite a bit of feedback on that. And I could imagine that being harder if you're earlier in your career. But we also, in the application, we try to also encourage you to think about and reference your lived experiences, your volunteer experiences, you're a leader in your civic group or in your church or in your fraternity and sorority. That, all of those things, in our minds, all of those things shape who you are as a leader and say a lot more about your potential for leadership than just what you've been able to do at work. And that gives you a taste of the conversations we have while you're in the fellowship, right? So we apply that at the beginning of the process as well as we think about the application. So no, it's not based on whether you already have a management position or not. Anyone else? If you think about what's a standout experience for you from the program,
I'll go if no one
go
else
for it,
wants to.
Jason.
Just because it's recent. It's just, it's more recent. So I would say the most engaging parts, or the things I got the most out of, were the pre-conference meetups that we would have. So it would be like, for instance, if we go to NerdComp, right? NerdComp is what, a 2 to 3 day conference. NLF will have something, a day or two before the conference, where we're just, getting fed pretty much, all sorts of tips and everything else. And then we have a wrap up after the conference. And those are really good to kind of either set your intention for the conference or kind of reflect on how the conference was and how you can better apply that to what you're looking to achieve. And they're small groups, so we're only like a cohort of I think 10 to 15 people. I'm not sure what the limit is, but 12, was it 12? Sorry, Dad.
It's 12.
Yeah, there we go. It's small enough where it's 12 people where you get to know each other, you get to know each other personally, you get to know each other's struggles. And some of the times people end up sharing the same struggles or the same issues or the same questions that you've been thinking about, but you felt you were too scared to ask for some reason, or you didn't really know how to position the question to someone who would be able to answer it. But those sessions there, help you work out some of those rough patches and help smooth things out so that your experience at the conference goes way better than it would have ordinarily. They tell you what to expect from sessions. They tell you what not to waste your time on. So it's really good to kind of talk to people who have been to these places before, who have been in the spaces that you want to get to, and kind of just take advice and kind of just leech off of their experience. So it's great.
Really appreciate that, Jason. Yeah, and that reminder that I realized I didn't say this earlier, but those 2 in-person experiences are week long. So you're there, we bring you in on Sunday, and you're there till we schedule the flights back on Saturday, unless you can find something Friday night to go back home. So that you've got this rich opportunity to engage. What was the expression? I was joking that NLF was running deep in both cases, right? I kept running into fellows all over the place. And at the last 2 years of the EDUCAUSE conference, we've published internally among the community, here are all of the sessions that are being led by NLF Fellows and in some cases mentors. And that list it was long the second year, it was twice as long the third year. You all have been really active in participating across the community. Well, one more on the value standout experience. Go for it, Justin. And then we've got some questions in the queue that we'll take.
Before NLF, I worked in higher ed since 2006, California public higher ed. I'd never been to the EDUCAUSE National Conference in my career, not one time. And then working with the cohort, Shantae and Christian and the rest of us, of the 12 of us, I was in 5 different presentation type things that we were doing, which really stretched my schedule. And actually Shantae and myself and Vanessa and Mark were on a panel that was hosted by Sherry. And I was actually so overwhelmed with things that I had said yes to that I was falling a little bit behind with my group. And we sat down and Vanessa just said, "Hey, I need you to get this done." And I was like, "You're right." And I had digressed. I had not been doing what I needed to do to be prepared for that. But I remembered going to Felix's session, which is the one where he was awarded the DEI Leadership Award. And we were just asking questions from the crowd, and his wife and his son were there. And I asked a question, and I got the book Ikigai, which is amazing. As a Japanese perspective on just proper work-life balance and approach to balance in your life, which was an amazing read. Thank you for that. But just seeing the support, it feels like, because you hear when you're doing a job search, if somebody says in the interview that we're a family, run for the hills, right? Because that means there's no work-life balance. But the NLF organization and the groups of people and the fellows that you get to know, you become more vulnerable. And I'm sure Jason's experiencing this now with the group being more in it. You become more vulnerable because you start sharing things that are very personal. They're very unique to you. As Jason was saying, I felt a little scared to say some stuff, but other people asked it. You're sitting in a room where at first it's just 12 of you and you don't know each other, and it's all kind of a little bit guarded. But over just a couple of days at NerdComp, your first in-person experience, a bunch of us went to karaoke. I think it was the first night or the second night. And we came back into the room the next day, a completely transformed group of people, because we had just went and had some real time with each other, just kind of being silly and singing some old 80s stuff and just being goofy. But it was a lot of fun. and realizing that we're all people and we connect in very real, substantive ways. So when Felix's son ran the book over to me after asking a question in his session that he presented at the EduCause conference, I was like, why are we doing all of this? Because a lot of us live to work, right? When we're professionally focusing on a career, but the work to live, we're doing this for our families, for our future, to make an impact, to be someone of substance if we can, maybe leave something behind of value. Everybody in the cohort that I've been involved in, both mentors and other fellows like Christian and Shante, and Felix, that I met all of you, Sherry and Michael, very real people, very dedicated and focused on helping you express from self-reflection how you can be vulnerable, how you can kind of open yourself up a little bit. It's a safe space to share those things and really be supported in a substantive, deep way that other leadership development programs really don't provide. They try to, they succeed to a level, but they don't get as deep and as powerful, I guess is the right word, as NLF does. They just don't. And it's not because they're bad. They aren't as good. That's been my experience. That's my TLDR.
That's very kind of you, Justin. Felix, you look like you're about to offer something, so I just want to check in. If you wanted to offer one of your standout experiences, then we'll talk about mentoring.
I think I agree with Stephanie. Like, there's no one that I could choose. I feel like every time we're around each other, every time we meet, every time we see somebody on a video call, even, you get a different kind of energy because there's your community, like you described it, and that's out there. I was just on a call with James before this, and he's like, "Call me, let's catch up. We gotta, find out what's happening and share." But I'll go back to the experience at my first NERComp. And I want to say it was the first day, right? When you kind of don't know what this is about, who's there, what is this all going to be? And I want to say, I think it was you, Michael, that told us, like, you already have everything that you need, right? And it was like this switch, because before that, I had kept thinking, what is it that I'm missing? What do I need to gain? What do I need to learn? What experience do I need to have before I can move into these next roles? And it was that switch that you all flicked for me that helped change that perspective for me.
Really appreciate that, Felix. And just a heads up, we're going to come back and talk about the alumni experience because you were key in helping us build that at the most recent EduCause, and we'll be repeating that and building on that moving forward. We've got 2 questions about mentoring, and Sherry, I'll ask you if you can help me think about how we can answer these questions. First one is, how are mentors selected to participants? I think this is the matching question. How are mentors matched with participants? Can participants interact with other mentors throughout the program? So the first answer to the question of how are they matched, it literally is randomized. We use a random number generator because we felt it was important for us to allow that to happen organically. And the language we use is that each participant is assigned a primary mentor. They're not your only mentor, they're your primary mentor. You have access to all of the mentors and are encouraged actually to reach out to them should any questions happen, or any questions or needs come up. But the role of the primary mentor is a person, ideally, who you have an established cadence of how often, and the 2 of you can work that out at the beginning of the year, how often you're going to engage with each other, what questions might you be bringing to the table, what you might already be wrestling with. And what we try to agree to among the mentors is if a question comes up that a mentor doesn't know the answer to, or thinks that another mentor is better positioned to make some connections for you or draw from their own experiences, that they'll make that connection to make that introduction for you as well. Sherry, you would add anything else about that part of the mentoring experience?
Yeah, I would also say when it comes to the mentoring, you'll get out of it what you put into it, right? So I've had mentees that have wanted to meet with me every month, every other month cadences, and then I've had some that want to do it quarterly. And so it's about what you want to get out of it. As you can imagine, all the mentors are very busy people. So it's up to you as a fellow to have a structured idea of what you want to talk to them about during those times and how you want to use those relationships. I think I've had conversations with almost everybody on this call, and I wasn't all of their mentors, right? But we've had some sort of engagement while they're going through some part of their career or personal life or whatever it might be, that they know that they can reach out to me and I'm going to be there for them. And I think all of our mentors would say the same, that they are here for anyone who they feel like they could help them in any way. So it's really an open door. You just need to take advantage of those opportunities.
I'll come right to you, Christian. There's also one piece that we have that we're trying to be more intentional about next year. We have the draft of a mentoring agreement. It's just a document that it can use it as a template, as a starting point. And what we encourage is each mentor fellow peering, that first conversation, you go through that document together. So you establish, what are some of the things we want to cover? How are we going to get in touch with each other? To Sherry's point, most of us have really busy schedules, but it's also really helpful as a fellow to know this is the way I get in touch with my primary mentor, their assistant, or their Calendly link, or whatever that is, so that you know that ahead of time. You're not trying to track each other down later on. But to Sherry's point, it really is about are you willing to put in the time and effort to build that relationship? And we're here to support that happening. Christian.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on those two questions. And the first one is, well, Sherry was my mentor, my principal mentor when I was participating in the program. And when it comes to go to another person, I think, like Michael mentioned, we have one principal mentor, but we can go to anyone. During my time, I was able to go to Jose, who is not here today, but from Pomona College, and also to Aisha Jackson. Aisha is not here, but at that point, she was not a mentor, and now she is, I think. And that was another connection. And even like sometimes it's not that we don't have to go to a mentor, or we don't have to go to one of the person who is designed or designated as a mentor. We can also go to fellows in the same cohort, or fellow in other cohorts. Like for example, in my cohort, I went to Bernadette for questions, or other people that we have that had different positions, for example, and going back to, do we need to be a manager to be, to participate in this program? No. And I was able to go to people who were managers or directors and gave me feedback, or even like recommendations, to how to do an interview, or how to answer some questions related to a different position. Because at that point I was an instructional designer, and then I moved to another whole world. So and for me, fellows in the same cohort were like, helped me a lot, aside from Sherry and Jose and Aisha. So I would say, if you have plenty of chances to go to other people, it doesn't have to be with your principal mentor. And when it comes to time, like Sherry said, it's based on your agreement with your principal mentor. I think Sherry and I wouldn't have like a schedule. It was more like, hey Sherry, can we meet? You have time this week, and then we'll schedule something from there. So it's not like Michael mentioned before, or even Stephanie, like we are all busy people, and we all, like the program or the mentor or the other people will always have a time to meet with you when you have that at your time, or whenever the time works for everyone. So I think then the mentorship part, it's very open to work with your schedule, with your style, with your goals, because again, not everyone has the same goal. Not everyone wants to be in a leadership position. Not everyone wants to be a CIO or a CTO, so I think it's important to know that the program gives you the chance to be or to go whatever you want, and not, it doesn't push you to be this person or to be in this role.
Oh, Christian, thank you for all of that. And thank you for ending with that point specifically. I see you nodding at this as well, Sherry. We spent a lot of time in that initial experience in Providence in March every year, trying to make that point especially clear, that our aspiration from the vantage point of the mentors is for each fellow to take the time through that experience and figure out for yourself, what is it I want to do with this? If I give myself the space to better understand myself, better understand the opportunities that might be in front of me, and how can I learn from my past experiences, what's that version of next step look like for me? And for our vantage point, success is not measured by just changing positions or being C-suite. That's why those numbers that I shared earlier, as much as I'm proud to share them, they're not on our website, because I've been really careful. We're trying to be very careful about how we message. Success for us is not measured just in perhaps in some of the traditional ways. someone coming through an experience and getting better clarity that, look, I really value work-life balance, and I want to be able to better support having I mentioned the author among the community, right? I want to spend time in doing that as well. We would celebrate that and just work with you to figure out how we can be supportive of that happening as you're exploring that for yourself. Stephanie, I see your hand.
I do. I just kind of wanted to really just re-emphasize what Sherry said. It's about what you put into it. One of the beautiful things, this is just me realizing that maybe this last year, you get to know all of the mentors really well, and they're just real people like all of us. So everybody kind of has a different leadership style and a different approach to things. I myself did not have a named mentor throughout. So Michael's my mentor. When I know he's like one of the very best, I'm gonna just, because I get the chance to serve on a committee with you now. One of the best, the way your mind is, the way that you break, the way that you facilitate, you will always be my number one when I go to for anything. Like, I've never met anybody better. Jen, who is on one of the other mentors, Stringer, she's kind of moved on to another position. You know, she's a boss. She's a boss lady. I feel like I can tap to her. I lean on her for things, you know, that I know probably I'm not going to get that kind of wisdom. No offense, but I'm not going to get that from you, Michael. Yeah. And then there's Matt, but that's the beauty of it, right? I could go on and on, but I'm not going to like put it right there. But I'm just finding that you get the most out of it by leaning into your resources, and these people all make themselves available. So it's just, again, what a gift. So just wanted
Oh,
to say.
Stephanie, thank you. Yeah, that is such a powerful point, right? That each of us has had our own experiences, our own journeys. We think about things differently, we approach things differently. And one of my favorite parts of the program, since I asked you all, is getting a chance to consider different issues with all of those lenses at the same time. And it makes for some really rich conversations, especially because we all care about each other, right? So that it's not my way has to be your way or is better than your way. It's just I see it differently. And you end up with far more clarity because you're able to have these multiple perspectives on it. Sometimes that can just be surprising when you put them in combination. Sante, sorry, you're on mute.
Okay. So just a quick testimonial. Before I joined NLF, I didn't have like a name mentor where I say, this is my mentor. I always had like sponsorship. I had people that I can go to for advice, but it wasn't like name mentorship. And it wasn't until I was in this program where I thought of these mentors. One, you can tell that they were invested in us and in the success of this program. And it came to fruition when I needed advice on a role. And I will say Sherry and Aisha, I'm calling them out, they accommodated me like within days. It was like, I need your help. I need advice. And sometimes, you know, we say we're busy, but if you have relationships with people, they will make time for you. And I would say because of this program, I really believe that the mentors and the fellows, they will make time for people that they really care about. And they get, you know, went through the process with me on you know, the role that I was applying to, and I really appreciate their time. And some people don't realize that all you need is someone to, you know, hear you out and just listen, right? And I really appreciate that's big. My meaningful experience is just the time that people who you say are, you know, busy, got a lot to do, invest in you. So I appreciate that. So I just wanted to say, yeah, you can have a mentor, but all of them are available.
Thank you
And
very much for that,
yeah,
Sante.
yeah.
Really appreciate that. Justin, I see your hand again.
So ditto, Dante, piggybacking off of what you just said, back in, it was in June of this year, and already done with my fellowship year and working on the professional development more program afterwards. And I was in final negotiations for a role at a California Community College district and was being offered the role, but it felt a little off to me, a little aggressive. And I didn't really know if that was just me or if I was seeing it wrong. So I reached out to Michael, and Michael was not my assigned mentor, but part of the program. And I reached out to my mentor as well and said, here's what I'm seeing. What should I do? And Michael's like, well, I have some time, it was within a couple of days, just like Shantae said, where we can jump on a quick call because I have a spot in my day. And Michael has an extremely busy schedule with everything he's doing. So I was like, I will move my schedule to make time to talk to you. Thank you. And he talked to me about the things that I should be asking about, the order in which I should probably present them, that this isn't all-inclusive or even maybe the best way to approach it. But he said, definitely ask about these things if they're important to you and see what kind of response you get. And that's going to be very telling. And I had, I think, 7 items that we talked about, and I had them on my notebook. So I just followed formulaic, and I was starting to ask the questions that were reasonable to ask. By question 4, the president of that community college district said, I don't think it's going to work. And he hung up on me. I was like, I had spent 7 hours driving twice up to that community college office to talk to them in person, and was happy to move there if necessary because it was a good community. And I just got cut off at question 4. And I'm just asking about job title. Do I get to talk? Am I part of the president's cabinet to discuss technology strategy? Do you have any kind of, relocation, compensation kind of stuff? I didn't know. I was just asking. And he was just cutting me off. Like, he didn't want to hear anything about it. He didn't want me even talking on the president's cabinet. And so when I texted back with Michael about it. And Michael's like, I think you dodged a bullet there. I think those were legitimate red flags. I think that could have been a real problem for you. You probably could have taken it, right? It would have practically paid the bills, would have been a title you could have put on LinkedIn. That's great and everything, but you might have been really miserable. It sounds like you would have been kind of shoved off to the side and the typical IT person in the closet with the hat rack of roles that you have to fulfill, which is our typical issue in technology. And the one statement that Michael told me that really helped me to realize that I deserved to ask these questions. And that the phrase that I wrote down was, technology undergirds everything that we do. So shouldn't we be at the table when strategic planning is happening to discuss the role of technology and how it solves problems for every stakeholder group at our institutions? Because he said, that's the way that I approach it at Bowdoin. That's the way I've approached it in previous roles. And that's the way we should be looking at it. So he gave me a strategic thinking mindset for just a few negotiation questions that I didn't yet have, but I thought I probably needed. And he gave that to me. So ditto Shantae, 100%. I would have probably accepted that position, and I'd probably be miserable right now in Visalia had that happen. So I'm not going to name the community college district, but you can probably geographically determine what it was. They were nice people. They were nice enough people. I'll give them that. They just weren't open to any, because organizations, and I studied this at USC, organizations either do or don't tolerate what's called questioning. Can I question status quo? And as that received, there's suggestion box questioning, which is what most organizational cultures have. We'll let you ask questions, but there's no real feedback or any consideration of your input. But we do receive it. But then there's full feedback loop and cultural welcoming of questionings and open conversation and dialogue, which is what NLF has, which is what the Moral Leaders Program encourages, which is what good culture does in an organization. There's just not a lot of that in higher ed. So thank you for helping me dodge that bullet. I appreciate it.
You're welcome for the part that I played in it. It's interesting, Justin, because one of the pieces that you raised has been an ongoing conversation, right? If the better you understand the better understand yourself, the better understand the kind of environments that you thrive in and the aspects of that environment that are important to you, the better then you can make those decisions when those opportunities come up, right? So the question becomes, how do I identify what those things are once I know what they are? What are the questions I can ask? Sherry and then Christian.
Yeah, so I just wanted to briefly say what I think the most memorable thing or thing that stands out to me about NLF is, and that's that we really concentrate on the whole person. And I'm not, it's not just professional development and leadership is great, but you have a life that you live and your career is part of that whole life that you lead. And we really ask people to think deeply about what they want those two things to look like in combination. And sometimes it makes people think about things that maybe they were uncomfortable about on one side or the other, but really makes them get real about it and thinking about where am I, where do I want to go, and thinking about my family and life in concert with that. So I know that that's been pivotal for a lot of people who have been in the program to really have those things intermingled and to think about them together as they go through the process.
Yeah, Sherry, that's such a crucial point. And I realized I mentioned the Designing Your Life program, but then we didn't explain what it was, right? But that's that initial experience in March. We've done this 3 times now. Every single time has been revelatory for, if most of the people who go through it, right? Because we are so often think about the parts of our life as discreetly from each other, as if we are doing them disconnected from each other. And this is a framework to try to think across them. And it can be very revealing when you take the time to do that in ways that we find really helpful to do at the beginning of the year. Kristen.
Yeah, real quick, just following Justin line and a little bit of the Sherry's and to give all the attendees here also a little bit of like feedback and information about what this program bring to you or can give to you. I think sometimes I say that this program also give you the knowledge and also a little bit of that push to be that person asking question maybe during interviews, when you're moving to that word that you want, but maybe it's not the right one for you. And the program give you the tools to be, to have the I would say the guts, and to have to be there and ask those questions, to ask for salary, to ask for okay, then if not this, then what about this, or what about the other things that maybe are not salary based, but something that can help you in the process, like like money for experiences, like workshops, like conference and things like that. So I think in that way, I also would say that the program give you the tools to be there, to be there and ask those questions and have the guts to say, like, I want these, and if you can provide me with this, can you do the other things for me, or can I have other things aside from money based thing. So I think that something that the program will give you are the tools to be that person and to have to make you feel comfortable when asking those questions on an interview or any other place, or talk about that with other person openly, and not being just, oh no, we don't talk about money, oh no, we don't talk about salary, or no, we don't talk about like positions and how that will work with other people that are not, sometimes just because we are minority, or sometimes because we are considered again, the minority on that college. So I think that's something that the program will bring to you, will give you, and it will have an impact on your future search and in your future career life.
Really appreciate that, Christian. And I think this might be a record for us too. It took us an hour to talk about money. We talk about money a lot in the fellowship, a lot, right? And that is by design, because to Christian, to your point, it is so common. It is so uncommon for that to be an open dialogue, particularly as people think about aspiring to, yeah, Justin, there you go, the 990 filings, right, that people don't often know, how can I figure out what an institution is willing to pay? What am I, how do I position myself to actually ask or to make an ask for those things? And so we try to be much more open about those conversations, to at least make it acceptable, right? Christian too, because one of the words I was thinking of as you were describing was confidence, because that's been the other word that's come up quite a bit, right? That if we can help you clarify the process, if we can lay out, here are some of the things to consider based on what you've expressed are important to you, how can you also get the confidence to be better positioned to advocate for yourself and to ask for those things? And that is not something that comes from the mentors. I think it's something that comes from the experience of being in a conversation with other people who are also being willing to be vulnerable and to support each other as they go through it. And that's one of the things I've been so exciting to see. All right, so one of my questions then, just realizing we have about 20 minutes left. What would you say to someone who's considering applying for NLF? Well, what is an observation, suggestion, recommendation that you would make to them? Jason, I saw you went for that unmute quick. So Jason,
I just feel
sorry,
like
you
I
just
was like,
muted. Yeah, here you go.
I was gonna say, I just feel like I was the last person to not talk. So I'm
Oh,
due.
go for it.
Just do it, you know, and take the time out, set the time aside to do it. Like, don't do it when you're in a time crunch. Don't do it if you have something else that you need to get done ahead of time. Really take the time, like set a few hours ahead, even if it's on the weekend or just a time where you really don't have anything else to focus on, to take the time and fill out the questions. Because it's true, like I BS'd it the first time, I'm not even gonna lie. Like I just tried to fill it out like I would any other job application, and it did not resonate well. And I mean, I wasn't really surprised that I didn't pick because I didn't put a lot of effort into it. But the moment I did put effort into it and I saw the rewards of that, I was like, oh yeah, of course, I BS'd it the first time. So I would say really take the time out, think about your answers, make your answers personal to you. Don't just give a generic, you know, sort of answer that you think people want to hear. Just definitely make it show who you are through your actual answers. So that would be the advice I give. Just make sure you focus on it, don't rush it, and don't have anything else kind of pulling at you while you're trying to do it.
Appreciate that, Jason. I realize I see a couple of hands. We'll come right to you. One thing we didn't say is that's the application, right? So anyone can apply. You can nominate yourself. You don't have to. It's not about references. It's not about your position. The applications are reviewed. Over the last 3 years, we've been successful in pulling this off. Each application is reviewed by 3 different people. And the only people who know who is assigned whom is myself and Sherry. So that's done intentionally. So it's not, in fact, I think we actually went to the level of removing the names as well. So this really is about reviewing the application. And so all they're going on is how you answer the questions. And that has really helped us be successful in recruiting people who have invested in themselves in that application, to your point, Jason. And it's the piece that we seem to have succeeded in pulling off is getting a group of people together who are willing to be vulnerable, who are willing to be vulnerable with each other and the mentors and the program. And that completely changes the experience that's possible when you've got that. All right, Christian, were you weighing in for this one as well? I think so. Go for it. Christian and then Shantae.
Yeah, real quick, just apply. You know, I am I'm the kind of person who don't even win on a scratch ticket. You know, like you know, and even when I wasn't like doing the application, and I got the application because my supervisor or one of my supervisor actually found it online and was like, I think you will be a great fit here. And I was like, I don't know, you know, I never, you know, I applied for this thing and never get anything, so I don't want to do this. But I did it. You know, I did put some you know, like thought and time to do the application. But again, I will actually recommend anyone to do the application, to submit the application, even if you think that you won't even like have a chance for, you know, to participate in the program. Again, that was me. I was like, okay, I will do it, but I know I won't get, you know, in the program. And then I got that, you know, email saying, and yes, I was, you know, accepted. So I was like, oh, okay, wow, you know. So I think a lot of people feel like that. And something that we talk about during the program a lot is the oh my God, I just forgot the word. Maybe Sherry can help me here a little bit, or Shante. Like when you think that you're not good enough to
Oh,
be
the imposter
the
syndrome.
imposter
syndrome.
the imposter.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot. And I think that's you know, that's something that we all have and that we all be talking about and take that out from like our life a lot of times during the program. So I think, you know, if you like me had that imposter syndrome and you think that you won't be accepted here, or you know, like not even good enough for this program, please don't apply. And you know, I will, you know, say please do it.
Appreciate that, Christian. Shantae, I think we lost your hand, but I think you were
Yeah.
next.
Yeah, I would just say, if someone is like hesitant or not sure if they should apply, I think the actual action of applying is self-reflecting. I know when I went through the application program, I think it was the beginning of the program because it forced me to really think about you know, my career, what, you know,
Mm.
what do I want to get out of a certain program? It made me really think, instead of someone say, here, take this, you know, go to this leadership program, you know, perhaps this will, you know, expand your leadership journey. Like, no, this actually is like 360, like a reflection. So I appreciate, like, even if you like don't even think you will get in, do the application anyway, because it will answer a lot of questions for yourself. And it certainly did for me. And it was a bonus when I found out that I got in, because I was like, I really poured into that application. And so if you're looking for just another program just to expand your network, don't apply just for that. Because this program is more than that, very transformative. We've been talking about it this whole afternoon. If you're closed-minded and don't want to really be truthful about who you are, yeah, this program is probably not for you. I think all of us here, we really care about each other and we really root for each other. This is what a lot of programs I see out there, you know, after the program ends, you really don't hear much from each other. But I can really say that anybody in this program, if I reach out to, we have that bond. It's just like an unspoken bond that, yes, we really care. We're really rooting for each other. So yeah, apply and see what happens.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Shantae. I realized I just clicked it, but I want to answer one question that's in the Q&A about the recording for this. Will the participants receive a copy of the recording? Yes, you'll get a Zoom notification about the recording once it's ready, but we'll also put it on the website, which means once I finish, the recording from last year's informational webinar is still up. So we'll add this one. We won't replace them, so you can see both years. And I think I still have the one from the first year. So we'll put that up as well. So there'll be 3 hours of informational webinar you can hear as the fellows talk about their experiences. So Justin, real quick, and then Felix, if you'll talk about the alumni experience from EDUCAUSE and looking ahead. Justin.
But just piggybacking again, as I've done so far, off of Jason, Christian, and Shantae's comments. I remember sitting and looking at the application, to Shantae's point about, am I starting the development program already? The questions being asked, like Jason was saying, my initial thought was, I'll just fill it out like a job app. And then I sat there looking at it. It was late in the evening. It was pretty late when I filled it out after work and everything else. And one of the questions really hit me. It was more encouraging me to reflect on why do I think this is the right program for me? That wasn't the way it was worded, but it was generally that's that kind of a context of a question. And I reflected back a couple of generations into my family and how education lands for me. I'm the very first person in my family to go to college. My grandfather was illiterate because he got kicked out of school because he was Native. That's a whole story. We don't have time for that here. But he admonished me to go get my education. And so the longer that I've worked in higher education, the more that I've seen it as less of a job and more of a noble cause to lift people permanently. And I was sitting here in this chair right here, thinking about that, looking at that answer to that question. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to answer this. This is probably going to sound stupid. Imposter syndrome, raving. I'm going to put this in. No one's going to read it. No one's going to care. It's how all these programs are, right? And I'm just going to disappear into the ether and move on or whatever. And then I get this contact that I've been selected. And I was like, that can't be real. This has got to be spam. This is a phishing thing. Somebody caught my internet history. I'm in cybersecurity, so that's very possible. Maybe I did something stupid. Did I click the wrong thing on Facebook? But then I got accepted, and then I show up, and it's like, these people are amazing. I'm just looking at the 12 fellows, 2 of whom are on this call with us right now, Shantae and Christian. I'm like, each of these individuals are amazing in their own right. And then our mentors start visiting and talking. It's like, I felt like I didn't deserve to be there. Like, this is too good of an experience for me to have been chosen to participate in. And then I mentioned that to my mentor a couple of months in, and she was like, no. Stop that. Stop that. My mentor works for AWS. She was in the CSU system as a CIO. And she tells me, no, you were chosen for a very specific reason. And several of us agreed. And you're only here by a specific reason. We chose you to be here. So stop that. I don't want to hear that again. I'm going to get upset with you if you use those terms again. And she just gave me a hard time, which I needed, and just kind of pick myself up and move on. So that was, and again, another TLDR from Justin, but I can't tell you how positive personally this experience has been for me. Just the building of it's less of a professional network and more of a community of like-minded individuals who are pursuing improving this culture of higher education technology and making it a better place, more inclusive, more diverse, with intention. And I can't tell you how amazing that's been for me. So if you are thinking about applying, like Jason said, don't make it like a job app. Definitely put time and reflection and thought into it, and really be your true self in the answers you put into that application. That's what I did, and I felt kind of dumb, the types of things that I said, but it's been a great experience. So I'm glad that I did.
Really appreciate that, Justin. All right, Felix, if you'll talk, so for the first time, excuse me, this year, you have been working to help us build the NLF alumni experience. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what happened at the most recent EDUCAUSE conference and some of the things that you're working on looking ahead.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Michael. This, like you said, this past EDUCAUSE, when we put together the list of all the different, talks and everything they was doing, it was, you could just basically go to only NLF stuff and nothing else, and you'd have a full agenda. So in addition to that, this year we had our first kind of all cohort dinner, and it was great for people to meet each other from the different cohorts. We also did a mixer and an open house, and I see some familiar names on the guest list here who were able to attend and hear some of the just powerful testimony and stories from that was unscripted. We just wanted to get everybody in a room together, have people who are thinking about doing this program in the same room and meet and network with each other. And I think it was a very powerful thing that we'll keep doing in years to come. And then as far as plans for the future, I think the sky's the limit. I think as we keep growing, like you said, there's 36 fellows that are participating at this point. At some point in the future, I could see us having our own conference, right? And maybe that's the third thing that we're going to have in the future. We're working on trying to set up virtual get-togethers so people can meet each other, because the cohort experience is very amazing, and you're fortunate if you get to cross cohorts and meet other people. But that's kind of what's hard, because not everybody can always attend all the different things. So we're looking at how we can do that virtually, augment that, and kind of just keep that community going, keep people connected, keep people learning and meeting each other throughout the program. But I welcome any and all ideas on how we can help facilitate that.
Really appreciate that, Felix. Thank you very much, and thank you for all the work you did. Felix did the just yeoman's work on getting the selection of the restaurant, which was phenomenal, for the mixer and the gathering, and the open house was one of the most moving experiences I've ever had at an EDUCAUSE conference. It had so many people stopping me afterwards, just giving really glowing feedback on the experience. So I just want to publicly say thank you very much, Felix, for all the work you put into that. Sari, turn to you.
Yeah, I also want to thank Felix. One of the other things he helped is Jason mentioned that we have a meetup to reflect on the conference at the end. And this past year, we had alumni come and do round robin tables with the current cohort. And I think, and Jason can speak to that experience, but being able to hear from folks that have been through the program and where they've taken what they've learned to the next step, I think that room was very blessed to hear from you all, and really found it impactful. So thank you for that also, Felix.
Really appreciate that, Sherry. I was one question, Stephanie. I see that you answered it by typing. I just want to highlight it. How does NLF compare to the More Leaders program specifically? One thing we've tried really hard, and you'll see it on the website as well, NLF is not positioning itself to compete with existing professional development programs. That's why we have that 2-year structure, that the program year is your year in the fellowship, and then we will sponsor you to do an existing professional development program. There's a bunch of reasons that we do that. Programs like More have built over a couple decades a really strong curriculum around leadership that covers it from a bunch of different angles. The part that I would offer is different from what we do in the fellowship, and the reason that they're one of our key partners is we spend a lot of time about who you are as a person and how that shows up for you in your holistic experience as a person, right? So that point Sherry made about your professional life and your personal life, so you spend a year with us engaging in those experiences. The feedback we've had from fellows who then go on to the More program is that they feel it was a wonderful compliment, right? So this is not about competition. We've also had fellows who had done the More program previously, so they chose to do something else. We've had a couple people do things like one of the Harvard postgraduate programs. So this is not a degree program, but one of those week-long immersive experiences, because they were really looking to dig into library and educational technology, right? So we are flexible when we work with fellows for them to select what their professional development experience will be. There's also one more question in the Q&A. When are applicants informed about the final selection into the program? So right now the deadline is December 31st. I'll openly tell you, we probably will not be working on January 1st. So we typically give a little bit more wiggle room. The 31st is the first of the deadline. But the system will notify you as your application walks through the process. So you're not just waiting to hear at the very end. When you're moved from one stage to the next, the system tells you. Our goal is to have notifications out by before the middle of January. One, so that you can plan for the March gathering. We've got to get you in touch with the travel agency, get your tickets and stuff set up. So that's one of the reasons it's important for us to have the cohort in place before the middle of January. All right, so we're right 4:52. Let me just turn to my colleagues on the panel. Any other things you want to highlight in the time we have left that stand out for you that you would want to convey to those who are interested in the program? And I'll also remind to our panel, our participants, I'm sorry, if you have a question you'd like to get in, we've got 8 minutes. So you still got a few more minutes to get a question in if you've got another question you'd like us to wrestle with. So first to my colleagues on the panel, anything you'd end with, and maybe this one I will go back, we'll just do in order.
I
All right,
had
Christian, please
had
go ahead,
a
share. Stephanie, you first.
quick
Yeah.
question. Yeah, just a quick question, because I want to make sure I don't mess anything up. If someone is recommended, like if someone applies for the program and might use an existing fellow as a recommendation or recommender or something like that, will we get a notification or an email or something that we need to be looking for?
So once someone lists you in the system as a reference for a point of reference, the system will email you automatically, asking you to fill out the form.
Does that come with a header title? No, I'm being very, my emails
No,
are.
yeah,
like-
you got it. I'll give you it's SM apply. It's actually used to be owned by SurveyMonkey. That's why the domain is SM apply. If you search for that.
Okay, I just did
Yeah.
not want to miss that, and that was one of the questions I typed in there. Okay.
Yep, you got it.
Thank you so much.
And thank you very much for Felix for answering that question in the thread. The website's the easiest place to go to find the application link. And it'll bounce you into the system itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I say my only advice is, because like I said, someone else had said, it's just such a fulfilling piece. Just go out and start the process, even if you don't finish it. I mean, we hope you finish the application, but just go out, take a stab at it, work on it a little bit. You could work on it a little bit each day until the 31st. But that's my advice. Don't be overwhelmed by it. Just start ticking away.
Nice, Stephanie. Thank you. Christian and then Shantae.
Just quick. Take a look at the application on, and maybe you think it will be a lot for you this year or next year. So if that if that is your case, then come back next year. Or even if you apply this year and you don't get the chance to participate in the next cohort, don't be discouraged. Don't be like sad about that. Just come again next year and apply again. So I'm sorry. But come again and do it. And yeah, just apply.
Appreciate that, Christian. Shantae.
Yeah, I would just say, do it. One of my fellows, Vanessa, she's not on the call. She said, when I started my podcast, I was very fearful of that. And this group had a lot to do with me starting my podcast. And she told me, when you have something in you that is fearful, that means you need to do it. So I will say, if this scares you, then that means you need to do it. So go ahead and apply.
Appreciate that, Shantae. Justin.
That's where I was. Exactly what Shantae just said. I'm just piggybacking off of what everybody else says because that's how this works.
Because we love you, Justin.
If you're at an institution, I'm just to anybody that's on this call, if you're at an institution that doesn't really support this type of thing, and you're wanting to go to conferences, or you're wanting to expand kind of your interactive kind of group of people, but they're not really supporting that. That was in fact, I said at the beginning, I left the college. I had a stable job, as I was getting paid well and everything, but I just had no support at all, zero. In fact, they almost prevented me from going to EDUCAUSE by giving me this laundry list of this better all be done. You're not going to EDUCAUSE. This is just October of 23. So I was like, you know what? This is not a positive environment at all. But I need to do something for me. I don't know exactly necessarily what it is, but I know I need to do something different, right? Like doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, definition of insanity. So do something different. Like Christian said, just do it, right? Like Jason said, just go do it. And if you're afraid of it, like Shantae said, that's probably why you need to do it, so that you can get over that and get to the next thing that's waiting for you, which is better.
Appreciate that, Justin. So we got one last question, again, just a tactical one, and how much does the program cost? I'll just repeat it again. It's on the website, and we try to be very specific about there. There is a participation fee of $1,000 that can be waived. It can be waived in part, it can be waived totally. So we don't want cost to be a barrier. The fellowship itself pays for the in-person experiences, including travel, registration, and lodging. And then we pay for registration for your 1-year professional development program the following year. I hope that answers the questions. All right, we're right at 4:57. My thanks to my colleagues on the panel. Thank you for taking the time on the Friday before many of us are going on break after next week. And to the participants who joined us, thank you so much for your questions, your participation, your energy. We will post this up on the website by tomorrow. You should get an automated email from Zoom as well once the recording's available. My thanks to all of you. I will stop recording, and I hope you have a great weekend.